Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk, also known as AfroDJMac, and I'm really excited to have you here. I've been wanting to start this podcast for quite a long time. I listen to a lot of podcasts myself, and there are a few really nice ones for music production and creating music and music technology. And I wanted to make my own that sort of touched on the things that I want to hear more about. And sometimes the best thing you can do when you're looking for something is to go out and create it yourself. And that's what I'm trying to do here. And I think also another little philosophy that ties into how this episode is going to come out is that I think it's best when you want to start something to just get started. If you were going to wait for the traffic lights of life to all turn green before you do something, you're never going to do anything. There's always going to be speed bumps, roadblocks, detours and obstacles, and truth be told, I've been avoiding those now for about a year probably, because that's how long I've wanted to do this. So tonight I'm just getting going and we're going to start right off. So you understand what this show is going to be about. I expect to have a wide range of things going on, everything from tutorials and techniques about music production to philosophy about creativity, pitfalls we run into along the way. I'd like to have interviews and conversations with people as they come up. And sometimes it might even be random things that aren't necessarily linked to music production, but may help you along the way. And I know myself that a lot of the other aspects of my life and my other interests tend to really tie in with what I'm doing with my music. And I find that by doing other activities, it enriches my music production. So I encourage you all to not just hole yourself up in your studios all the time and get out there and try some other things, because you may find that it does add to your productivity. So for today's episode, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. And the reason for that is I'd like to get it out of the way so you know who you're listening to here. But there are a few important themes that I'd like to touch on that I've gone through and struggled with that come up a lot when I talk to other producers, and I think are very smart and useful things to have in mind as you go along. I wish I learned them a long time ago, but I'm glad I did, and they are things sometimes I still struggle with. So probably number one, the most important thing I would say is do the work and put in the time. There's really no magic trick. You're not going to subscribe to a course, watch a video. You're not going to sit down with someone for a lesson or go to school and take a program and suddenly you get your certificate and you're a wonderful music producer. It just doesn't work that way. It's about doing the work and putting in the time, putting in the mental energy as well, thinking about it. So it's very important we do that, and that's part of my journey. And it's part of my success and my failure. I think another theme that comes up is that you need to just trust that the hard work and the time will get you where you want to go. You will get success. You will move forward. Every time you sit down and make music, you are making progress. Every time you even think about it a little bit, go deep into your mind and just explore some topics you may be learning about or thinking about music, you are making progress. And I think it's important to notice that and give yourself credit for it. But don't use results as a measure of your success, because you have no control over the results. You have control over the process. You have control over the amount of time you put into it. And that's the thing you need to focus on. I think it's important that you consider success just showing up and doing the job, just buckling down and doing it, especially if there's times when you don't want to. Maybe you don't feel inspired, maybe you're not excited at the moment, but you got to sit down anyway or stand up, however you like to work, and start doing it. And hopefully that routine will find you and you'll be able to get things done and you'll be able to get in your groove better and you'll learn how to power through things like writer's block and getting stuck. So I'd like to sort of say those are the themes of the show today that come up in my story. So you have a little background for me. I am a musician, a producer, a teacher, and I consider myself a student of music more than anything. I started playing guitar when I was 14 years old. And when I first started learning guitar, I had really no idea about music. I didn't know anything. I didn't understand beats. I didn't understand measures or notes. I didn't know any of that stuff. It was, to me, rock stars were sent down from the heavens. They were chosen, maybe struck by lightning or something. And that's how they became what they were. I never thought of it as something that I could do. As much as I loved music, it was never something I could do. I didn't know that if I had a guitar, I could play the songs that I heard on the radio on the guitar, which sounds kind of ridiculous, but I didn't know that. I'd never been surrounded by that. I hadn't had a person in my life show me a song played on a guitar that I knew on the radio until I was 14 years old, when my best friend Mike at the time, he's still one of my best friends, he came over with his guitar and showed me some music that he'd been playing. I had no idea he'd even been playing guitar, and he showed me how to play Enter Sandman by Metallica. And it was just a serious turning point in my life that it just blew my mind that I could do that. If I sat down long enough, I can do that. And maybe after an hour of fiddling with that guitar, what I was doing sounded like Enter Sandman by Metallica, and it was so empowering and exciting. So I don't want you to get stuck thinking that you need some sort of innate talent. You need to be born with some crazy ability. I just don't believe in that, because for me, I didn't have that, and I've been able to become pretty comfortable making music and find a little bit of success in my own right anyway. So don't feel like anyone has a real advantage over you. Sure, they might have a natural tendency. They may have been brought up around more music than you, but there's an old saying that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, and I really think that's true. Keep that in mind. So, at the current time, I'm teaching the Advanced Music Production course with Ableton Live at Berkeley Online, and I love teaching that class because I work with all different kinds of people, different levels, different abilities, different ages, and I'm often asked the same questions about getting started and getting going. And that's kind of what inspired the idea for this episode. So I was actually asked the question, when do I develop the ear that I can know how to make a professional sounding track? And the question was kind of made me think, like, I don't know. How do you know? Like, what happens? Is there a day the lightning bolt strikes you that all of a sudden you can do it? I don't really think there is. It's just working and putting in the time. So with that in mind, we'll go back to my early days. I started with the guitar. I was 14. So that means I've been playing for 22 years now, which is more than half my life, which is pretty exciting. And at the time, I, again, knew nothing. Played in rock bands. That was the thing I was into. Bands like Nirvana, the Beatles, Weezer was a big influence on me. And that's what our bands sounded like. We were very into that stuff. And we played rock and roll for a long time. It was pretty early on that I got interested in recording. And I think the biggest motivator was that I wanted to have somebody to sit around with and play guitar with. So if a friend wasn't available, the band couldn't play, I had a tape recorder and I would play along with that. And I got into trying to figure out ways to overdub, from setting up karaoke machines, recording into each other. And then finally I got my first 4-track tape recorder, and that was pretty exciting. I can now make my own compositions. And it started slow, and that's the thing. Everything starts slow. No matter what level you're at, it's going to take a while. It's going to have to build up. Probably because of my interest in recording, I started to get interested in other instruments and sounds. And that's largely because of the Beatles. I was so fascinated with them and how they worked. I loved how they can use other instruments, or not even instruments, just things around the house and make music with it. I love that idea that, like, the difference between music and noise is really up to you, that music is organized noise in a lot of ways. I'm sure you've seen videos online where people are banging on like their car and they set it up so that it becomes a beat and then it becomes music. The horn is now a note, and I love that. I think that's just really cool and interesting, and it's one of the cool things that we're able to do today with our music software. So, as I progressed along, I got involved in using the computer to record my music. I sold a really nice Tascam mixer to get my first computer, and I do kind of regret that because that was a really sweet mixer. Would have been nice to have now, but oh well. I got a computer, got involved. I started using Pro Tools. I didn't know what else to use, so I got Pro Tools. That's what I'd heard of. A lot of my friends were going to music college at that time, and I was probably a little bit jealous of them that I wasn't doing that, but I kind of went along on the ride with them because I was in the studios with them. I was in the not the classrooms, but I was in the school. I was using some of the facilities as we were recording our band, and it was pretty exciting to see all that. So when I got Pro Tools, that was a great, exciting day for me. Um, I slowly learned how to use that, and I moved on past some different softwares. I liked Digital Performer for a while, and I really loved Logic. Thought Logic would be the one I'd stick with until I came across Ableton Live, which is what I use now. And ultimately, I became a certified trainer with Ableton. So it's kind of my specialty there. Just so you know, this podcast will be probably a lot of talk about Ableton Live, but I'd like it to be not necessary that you're an Ableton Live user to get something out of it. So while I may talk about examples using that software, I think a lot of it's going to apply to anything you may use. Well, fast forward, say, through a couple months of using Ableton Live a little bit, and the band I'm playing in breaks up. And we'd been working hard. We'd been on tours down the East Coast of the United States a few times, pouring a lot of my time and energy, and really my entire musical focus was in that band. So when that thing broke up, it was kind of devastating. It was upsetting and strained some relationships I had with my friends that I was playing with, which happens a lot with bands, but you get over it and you move on. But I decided to really focus more on being a bit more solo, because I've learned through, being in various bands that they break up and people move on, and it's not always a bad thing or personal thing, but it happens. And, people's priorities change in life. Mine have too, and it's, I'm not going to ever say that, it was this guy's fault or that guy's fault that anything broke up, but, people just change and things evolve. So to have all my eggs in the basket of a band with a couple other moving parts was something I didn't want to really get involved in again. I wanted to be a little more self-sufficient. So I really focused on bringing my music into a live performance and writing on my own with Ableton Live. And a lot of things changed when I did that. I was able to work at a much more comfortable schedule for myself and work more often and make more progress. I started studying music again. I started studying production again, and that was pretty exciting. And actually this month, March 2017, marks a special time for me. It's 6 years ago, just about to the day, that I started my website, AfroDJMac.com, and I figured I was going to document what I'm doing with my music. So I should maybe backtrack. I like to write a lot. I am an English teacher in a high school for my real job, my grown-up job. So that's a big part of what I do, teaching and writing and reading, but especially the writing. So I figured I wanted to document my progress, mostly for myself, if I'm being honest, just so I can look back and see that I've actually made progress. And there's a little thing I'd like to throw out there for you, is that take note of what you're doing. Write this down in a notebook. Whatever you're doing today with your music, keep track of it. There's nothing like going back in a notebook that's a year old and discovering that you've come a long way. And I'm sure you have. You don't see the changes that you make and the growth you have every single day. Think about when you look in a mirror. You really don't see yourself aging. You don't see the changes, but you see a picture from 5 years ago and you go, whoa, look at myself. I'm different looking. And it's the same way with keeping track of anything you're doing, but we're talking about music production. it's nice to look back in your notebooks and see that like the things you were working on, the songs you were playing are different than they are now, and that you've made some progress and you've learned things, and maybe you listen to an old recording and you get the similar effect. But I think also writing is important because you can get into your mind a little bit. But either way, keep track of what you're doing, listen to old recordings, read what you've done in the past, and that can be very inspiring. I think that a lot of times what makes people quit at things is that they don't realize they're actually making progress when they very well might be. It's not easy to see the growth on a daily basis, but over the course of time, you might be surprised at how far you've come. So I started my blog March 2011, and I was writing a little bit about what I was doing. I was working on some songs with my good buddy Alex, aka Super Kid 3D, and we had basically finished a few songs, and we were writing about the album process and all this stuff. I got the idea to record some instruments, record some samples and make instruments out of it in Ableton Live. And it really just started with my laptop feedback. So if you've ever had your laptop with the speakers on and like maybe record enabled a track where the input was the internal mic on the laptop, and they're usually very close together, you'll get some pretty awful feedback. It's kind of disgusting, and it's shocking, but I decided to sample that. And I sampled that and built an instrument in Ableton Live with the sampler device. Made a nice little instrument rack, and I loved it. It was really fun, and it was a unique sound. So I decided, what the heck, I'll just put this online and see if anyone else wants it, everyone wants to download it. And much to my pleasant surprise, some people did. I think maybe there was like 50 downloads the first day, and I just couldn't believe it. I didn't had 50 people pay attention to anything I've done in a long time, so I was really excited about it. And then something occurred to me. A lot of the music I'd been listening to, a lot of the people I'd been following, the musicians, the producers, were the people I was learning from. Whether it was people I knew or people I saw on YouTube or on their website, I was learning from them and I was listening to their music. And I decided that that would be a great way to get my music out there. My thoughts, my ideas, is to share. And that's what the blog became. And that's what my idea to kind of release Ableton Live packs became. Making tutorials also became the next thing. And I started doing that, and I've thought that it was nice to share what I was doing, but it was also a way to document what I was learning. So I'd learn something new and I'd make a video about it. I'd create a new instrument, I'd make a video, I'd release the download for people. And I started building a little bit of a following that way. And since I was so excited about my first pack that got like 50 downloads, I decided I was going to do this every week. And I just wanted to capitalize on that. I wanted people to hear what I was doing. I wanted them to see what I thought and share my music. And sort of a weird side effect out of that was by setting this little goal of making something every single week, it forced me to keep busy. So every week I had to produce something. I had to come up with something. And a lot of times that also included like a little musical example to go along with it. And it kept me busy. So on nights where maybe I might have just sat around and watched TV, hung out, or done something different, I was like, I got to get to work. I got to make something because I said I was going to do this every week, and I don't want to not live up to that. So it kept me busy. It got me in a routine. And maybe there's a little additional theme lesson of this particular episode is set yourself up with some self-imposed deadlines, self-imposed things you need to do on a regular basis. It's so powerful. It's very common for people to just kind of do music when they feel like it, when they're inspired. And that's cool. You want to like have your music come from somewhere. But I think a lot of times that gives you an excuse not to do it and not to dig deep. And growth comes from digging deep. If you don't challenge yourself, you're never going to grow. You're never going to change. You can't work out with 1 pound dumbbells, even if you do it for 100 hours a day, if that were possible, you'll never really see any progress. You have to challenge yourself. So challenge yourself, set up something. As a side tangent, on this January, there was the January 2017 challenge, which I think was created by Cuckoo. And if you don't know Cuckoo, he's awesome. I've been following him for years. He's been an inspiration to me with a lot of the stuff he does. And I think, although I've never actually met him, I think we're kind of like-minded. But he set up this challenge where you have to post a jam every single day in January. Doesn't have to be great. Doesn't have to be a finished product. It doesn't even have to be good. Just put up a jam every day. And I kind of watched him do this for like a week or two, and I saw some other people do it. And it's like the middle of January, and I've sort of felt for a few days I wanted to do it, but I don't know if I'll have time, whatever. And then it's halfway through January. I don't know if I can do it now. And suddenly I just said, well, what the hell? I'm just going to do it. And I'll jump in now, better late than never. And I got to tell you, like, forcing myself to make a jam every single day was so awesome. It was so awesome. I didn't think I could do it, first of all, and I proved to myself I could. And I said, doesn't have to sound great, doesn't have to be awesome, but it turns out I kind of like some of those things I came up with. I came up with songs that I never would have came up with if I didn't push myself. It's funny to think about, if you don't get to work, what did you miss? What didn't you come up with that day? Because so many times in this sort of like forcing myself to get to work, I've not wanted to do it. I've wanted to just rest, or I've wanted to say it's too late, or I got to get up early. And I've sat down and done it, and a good portion of the time I come up with something I never would have came up otherwise, and I like it. And if it's not, a finished product, it's an idea for later. And that's empowering. There's nothing better you can do for yourself than give yourself little tricks to make yourself feel empowered. And that was one of them, challenging myself to do something every day. So thanks, Cuckoo, for that. That was awesome. And it ties in with, how I got started with doing music production tutorials, releasing Ableton Live packs, is I set up this challenge. I didn't really know I was doing this, but I made it so that I had to get to work. And it just set up a momentum that really, really was valuable to me. So the funny thing starts to happen. I'm putting out these packs, and I'm still learning Ableton Live. I'm still learning Ableton Live today. I might be a certified trainer, but I'm still learning. And I think it's important that you keep that mindset of always learning. But as I'm putting these tutorials and packs out, I start getting questions from people. I start getting emails or comments on YouTube asking me how to do this or that. And I'm no expert in Ableton Live or music production or anything really. And people sort of thought I was. And I almost had to laugh to myself because it was just a funny thing. It was like a lie almost that, I can play the part of someone that knows what they're talking about and people will believe it. It's a sort of fake it till you make it kind of thing. So they'd ask me questions. I'd be like, I don't know. I'm just figuring this out. But I'd also go and try to figure that out and give them an answer. And I learned a lot that way too. There's a funny thing that happens when you start doing something. People assume you're a person that does that thing. So, if you go to the beach every day and surf, and you've never surfed in your whole life, people are going to see you and think you are a surfer. They're going to think you play that role because you really are. You have to do it. I kind of remember one of those brothers from Oasis, the Gallagher brothers, the rock band Oasis. Some characters there, always entertaining. But he said, if you want to be a rock star, go be a fucking rock star. Go do it. Those are his words. So go do it, Be a rock star. Act like one. Dress like one. Think like one. And you will become that. And I just thought that was great advice. I found it inspiring. I don't know if I wanted to be a rock star in the traditional sense of the word, but the idea is really cool that if you want to be something, start acting like it, start doing it. You're not gonna suddenly turn around and like someone's gonna like anoint you a rock star or anoint you a surfer or whatever it is you want to be. You just have to start doing it and you become that. Again, that's empowering, I think, that you can do what you want to do. You just got to go start doing it. Don't wait. That's why I'm doing this podcast tonight. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, and you know what? Things aren't perfect, but we're just doing it. We want to talk, and that's where we're going. So that's kind of something that started to happen to me as I started releasing these packs and putting out tutorials and put myself out there in the community. And there's another fun thing about the world today is community. There's so many opportunities to reach people that have similar interests as you. Now, you might look down your block or your neighborhood and there's maybe like one other person that's into producing music and she's, on the other side of town, the other state or whatever. But on the internet, we all get together and we can all meet up quite easily. And you can find those people. They're out there. And I found that my sort of angle as just a guy making music in his basement was a similar angle that a lot of people had. And on top of that, there were a lot of people that were doing it for less time than me. And I think my inexperience was an advantage because I was more on their level. I understood what it was like. And I found that too as a teacher in high school. When I started, I'm 25 years old. I related a lot more to the high school students I was teaching than the other people I was working with. The other teachers, I didn't know what it was like to be a teacher, but I remembered what it was like to be in high school. And I think that helped me out a lot, my inexperience. So those can be advantages. Inexperience can be a good thing. Sometimes we just think, you need all these credentials, you need all this background, but a lot of times that blinds you. You start following conventions and rules, and you don't try things you're not supposed to try. When I was learning guitar, I taught my other best friend, Thomas, how to play guitar. And I wanted to just play solos over his rhythm guitar. So I got him playing, and hopefully, we'd start a band one day or something. And I was always surprised because I was taking guitar lessons. I was learning some theory, and I kind of was getting an understanding of scales and chords and things that sound good together. But Thomas didn't. And he would go home, play his guitar, and come back the next day and play something. And I'd watch him play. I'm like, oh, you're not supposed to go to that chord in this key. It doesn't make sense. That's not right. That's wrong. That note doesn't really get played in this part. But I had to admit it sounded cool. He was unaware of the rules and just making music without worrying about it. And he used his ear, he used his feel. He had like the soul in there. And he was able to come up with really cool stuff I never would have came up with because I didn't think you were supposed to do that. So his inexperience actually helped him write a lot of really good songs that I never could have written because my experience, whatever little it was anyway, was enough to shut me off to those ideas that I would never try those myself. So your inexperience can be a good thing. Use it to your advantage. So that's a bit about me. I eventually, kept working at this stuff, kept making my tutorials and all of that, making my music. And I started to really know what I was doing. I started to learn it. And it was a fun journey to feel like in the beginning that people were asking me questions and I thought why are you asking me? I don't know what I'm doing. To where, yeah, I can help you with that. I know how to do that. And November 2013, I believe it was, I got certified as an Ableton certified trainer. And that opened some nice doors, got me in teaching at Berkeley Online, the Advanced Music Production with Ableton Live course, written by Loudon Stearns. And Loudon, thank you. You were instrumental in getting me involved in that gig. And it's been so great to meet people through that course. And here I am teaching again. And that's one of the things I love, is teaching, because it's a great way to learn. There's no better way to learn something than have to teach it. I learned grammar really fast as an English teacher. I learned about books really fast, vocabulary words, like stuff that I should have known from high school. You know, I learned it real fast when I had to teach it, because you get up there and, people know when you don't know what you're talking about. I always think it's a good thing to admit when you don't know what you're talking about, especially as a teacher. To say, I don't know, is sometimes a great answer, because you need trust. You're telling people how things are and trying to open their mind to see things a certain way, or just, to expand their minds, I guess. They're not going to go on that journey with you if they don't trust you. So if you act like you know it all, you're eventually going to get caught, because you don't. No one does. So I don't know is a great answer, but anyway, teaching Berkeley has been great because I meet so many different kinds of people, as I said before, and I learned so much from them. There are people that have way more experience in the music industry than me, that have been through much larger productions, been to award shows, been on tours with national acts, and played in bands with them. And it's really cool to hear their perspective. But the one thing I guess I have is that I understand how to use the software. I know how to use it to make music, and that's what they want to learn. And I've learned from that we all have something to offer. We all have our own thing. And it's important to tap into that and focus and try to harness that for other people. I'm sure every single one of you listening, if you are anyone listening, that there's something you have that's different, that's special. And it could even just be the personality you bring, the humor you bring to your music, the perspective. That's all so important. And it all makes your own sound and makes yourself unique. So it's important to tap into that. So here in March 2017, 6 years into doing my blog, been teaching for about 3 years at Berkeley. 2 years ago, I started my music production club, which has been another thing that's just been awesome for me, in that it keeps me working. I have to basically let the music production club goes, not to sound like I'm promoting, but I release some new download every single month for the people in the club, and they get it in their inbox and they download it and they can use it every single month. So I have to come up with something cool and useful every month. And that can be hard. I've had months where I just didn't know what to do. And I tell you what, there's nothing like a looming deadline to make you think of something to do. And I can honestly say I'm really proud of everything I've put out. I've never phoned it in. Even when I thought I was going to have to, I found a way to make it interesting. And a lot of that was talking to people, thinking about what they need and putting myself in their shoes, what would I want, and making the things that I actually want to use. And that's another important thing. Do what you want to have, make the music you want to hear. I think it'd be way more satisfying to have a body of music that got very little success that you enjoy listening to, than to have a collection of songs that maybe you don't care about, you did it for the money, that you were forced to do, that you had rules and guidelines and other people telling you how it should be. I just don't think the level of satisfaction would be the same, at least not for me. So make the things you want to make is one of the things I've picked up on, is that when you do the thing you want to do, there's enough people out there scattered across the world that are interested in that too and will find it useful and exciting. You got to trust that, and that can be a hard thing to do. So I think I've kind of tapped on a lot of the major things I wanted to say in this first sort of introductory episode, where I'm talking about myself a lot, but I wanted to get that out of the way because I think there are some important lessons. As you may have noticed, this podcast will be very informal and unrehearsed, and there's two reasons for that. I'll tell you the first one, which is really probably secondary, but I don't really always like things that are too rehearsed and scripted. It sometimes feels uptight and forced, and I don't want it to feel forced at all. But the other reason, which might be more practical, is that I don't think I'd be doing this if it was super rehearsed. I don't think I'd be able to find the time to write this out and plan every little thing perfectly. So I think it's fun also to sort of let your mind go and see where it takes you. That's an educational experience on its own. And that's how the show is going to be. So don't expect anything too structured or formal, though I would like to keep it to certain themes. But we'll see how it goes, and hopefully there'll be a little bit of feedback on what you think about all of this, and I will use that as I move forward. But as of right now, I'm really happy if you are listening to these words right now, because that meant you sat through this and maybe even enjoyed it. And I hope there was something interesting and useful for you. Please feel free to let me know if there's something you'd like to hear about or talk about or topics. Basically, you can find me anywhere on any site by just adding AfroDJMac to the end of it. Facebook/AfroDJMac, Twitter, SoundCloud. My email is afrodjmac@gmail. Please feel free. Let me know. This is what it's about, a conversation and experiencing and going through this journey together. So thank you very much for listening, and have a great day.